It's time for my favorite video of the year. Let's set up my 2025 TBR shelf. But first, actually, let's turn off this tree because I'm not going to be able to focus if this thing is flashing behind me. That's better. Also, hi everybody. So I was doing Vlogmas, and I was doing it single-handedly because my sister has her brand new baby. And then I wasn't doing Vlogmas because I was too busy, which I guess was sort of a natural possibility when you're doing it by yourself for the first time. I am kind of sad about that, not just because, like, it's not really about feeling a responsibility to other people. Like, I'm not saying that I feel like I let anyone down, but I personally really like having that Vlogmas video up every day and getting to watch them back later on. So I feel kind of bad that, you know, they really didn't come to fruition this year. I will put a montage at the end of this video of some of the footage that I've taken over the last couple weeks that never materialized into any videos. But I thought this was a great way to jump back into it because I legitimately have been looking forward to this TBR shelf video for the entire Vlogmas. I get excited about this every year, putting together a list of options for reading for the next year, and I really like the plan that I've come up with for my 2025 reading. Basically, I'm thinking that in 2025, instead of just sort of one thing for the whole year or even sort of a monthly breakdown, I kind of want to do like a seasonal thing, almost dividing it into quarters, like you would for the corporate year. So doing a spring, a summer, a fall, and a winter sort of TBR. And so for me, for 2025, winter would just be January and February. And then I would do a new set of selections for March, April, May, a new one for June, July, August, and a new one for September, October, and November, and then I can kind of go on a free-for-all in December. I do have 4 categories that I am going to base my seasonal reading around. All 4 of these categories come from things that either I have done in the past or that I want to do more of in my reading in 2025. So the first of the categories that I'm going to pick each season is a mood read. And obviously that's whatever my top book of the moment is when at the time that I put together that season's TBR, which will be a couple days before the end of the month that precedes it. And I wanted this on my list because you would think it would be the easiest one in the world, a mood read. It's just what you want to read. I am so indecisive. I will talk myself into and out of a dozen books at a time. So I want to learn how to trust my instincts again a little bit more. So I really want to force myself to choose mood reads to make like those kinds of decisions. The second category is going to be the category that most of the TBRs that you've seen from me have been based around, which is the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. I have a video from earlier in Vlogmas before I fell off the wagon where I was going through some of the prompts on this list. They have, in the 10 years that Pop Sugar has been doing this, gotten stranger and stranger. The prompts, some of them are really niche in a way that is almost not enjoyable because it is taking you out of your comfort zone to find some of these books, but sometimes it's taking you so far out of your comfort zone that it's hard to pick something that interests you. So, you know, it's kind of a toss-up, but there are some good prompts this year, and I really want to keep going at it, see what I can do. So book number 2 will be from this list. Book number 3 in each of my TBRs is going to be kind of an unhaul book. So I have looked through my shelves and I've identified approximately 50 books that are on my shelf right now that I don't think I'm going to want to keep if and when I read them. So this could be for a number of reasons. Some of them are books that I don't know where they came from, but they don't look like something I would enjoy. Like, they don't look well written, or it's not a genre or a subject matter that I have any draw to whatsoever, and they just ended up on my shelf and now I can't shake them off. And then some others of them are things that at one point in my life, they were more enticing and interesting to me. But at the stage of my life that I'm at now, not so much. For that third category, every season when I'm choosing my TBR, I want to put one book on my TBR that I think I'm going to want to unhaul. And I like to do it because it helps me refine my reading taste, and I also just have a hard time getting rid of books unless I sit down and like read them one more time. But obviously I'm not pulling them off the shelves for my normal TBRs because I'm not interested in them, so this will force me to do that. And if that makes more space on my bookshelves, that's great, because I have a whole line of books down here right outside of camera frame that are probably 2 full like shelf rows of books that don't fit on my shelf. So I need to make some space in here. And maybe this will help me do that. And then the fourth category, I don't know if you've noticed about me from previous videos, but I like little free libraries. I love the idea that you can open them up and there's free books in there, and you know, sometimes they're real weird and sometimes they're incredible books that will change your life. And it's really a toss-up, you never know what you're gonna get. I want to read more from little free libraries. But I also like the idea of that sort of randomness that I just mentioned. The idea that you could get a gem of a book that you've been wanting to read for years, or everything in there could be the most random stuff you've ever encountered. So my fourth book is going to be a book from a little free library, but I'm going to make it hard for myself. In a way that, again, someone who is like a pure mood reader who doesn't believe in reading books that they're not wholly interested in would probably cringe at. Basically, I'm going to go choose a little free library when I'm putting together my TBR for the next season. I'm going to choose a little free library. I can't shop around to multiple little free libraries until I find a book that I am super interested in. I can't pre-select a book from a little free library and save it. I have to choose that little free library when I'm putting together my TBR, go to it on that day, look at what's in it, and whatever I think is the best, most interesting book in that little free library at that moment, that's what I'm picking. There could be nothing in there that appeals to me, but I have to pick one. So as you can see, the first two categories are more about following my moods and my reading tastes and choosing things that appeal to me, and the other two are about going out of my comfort zone and choosing things that I have sort of a 50-50 chance, really, of liking at all, and being more adventurous and finding things that are going to challenge me a little bit. But enough of that background, let's get to the TBR. So for my TBR shelf, which is the ledge out in my living room, I'm going to focus primarily, to start with, on books that fit the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge categories, which really I have a couple of categories that I have a lot of books for, and then most of these categories I don't think I have anything for. So there's going to be a lot of Pop Sugar choices from outside of what I own this year. If I get to the end of the Pop Sugar categories and I still have room on that ledge, I'm going to put some mood reads. I'm not going to take all 50 of my potential unhauls and like put them out there. So we're going to try to populate this with the first two of the categories that I listed. Okay, so I just pulled a few books off of my shelves that are for Pop Sugar Reading Challenge categories that I think I only have one book that fits, or I already 100% know what book I am choosing for that category. So I'll walk you through those, because these are going to be the first ones to go on my TBR shelf. The Pop Sugar Reading Challenge this year has a prompt for a book, let me read the exact words, a book you want to read based on its last sentence. A couple weeks ago, I was thinking about that prompt while I was making my morning tea, and I just started pulling books off the shelf while I waited for the water to boil, and looked at their last lines thinking, oh, it's going to take me forever to find something for this. And then, like 2 or 3 books in, I pulled Elsewhere by Alexis Scheitgen off of my shelf. I bought this book on a whim at a independent bookstore in Stanton, Virginia this past summer. It's a sort of interesting premise about, it's about this town that's isolated in the mountains, and they have this weird phenomenon where just inexplicably a certain percentage of mothers in the town just disappear. They just vanish, and no one knows like why. It's described on the book jacket as being like having elements of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. I guess with that sense of like ominous randomness. So it sounds super, super interesting, and from what I can gather, it's sort of allegorical of like motherhood in general, and how you can sort of lose yourself when you become a mother, and you sort of only become the mother side of yourself, and how many children get to know the real person that their mom is. So the last line, the last sentence of this book knocked me on my ass. I flipped to it, and the last line is, I will never leave the coast. I will wait for Iris until I am heir. And I was like, holy crap. I need to read this immediately. So I'm not looking for any other options for that category. That's what it's going to be. There is a category in the advanced section for a book of interconnected short stories. And this may be cheating. I don't think it is, but maybe. I've got The Return of Sherlock Holmes. All of the stories, I would say, are interconnected. They're all separate mysteries, but, you know, there's a through line there. So I thought I might do that one. There's also a category for a book about centering LGBTQ plus characters that isn't about coming out. And I bought Casey McQuiston's The Pairing at the National Book Festival this past year, which is a romance. Like they're exes, and now they're sort of getting back together, maybe, on this like international trip that they had originally booked to do together, and then they went to sort of go on the trip themselves after they broke up, and it turns out they're both on the trip. So that's not going to be about coming out. It's safe to say they're already out at this point. So that's what I'm going to use for that, because I really wanted to read that last year. One of the prompts that I don't like on this year's Pop Sugar Reading Challenge is there is a prompt for a book that an AI chatbot recommends based on your favorite book. I don't like AI. AI is bad for the environment, and it erodes our critical thinking skills, and you don't need it. It's kind of fun, but you don't need it. But I wanted to see what it would give me for this prompt, so for the first and probably last time I used ChatGPT, I fed it 2 of my favorite books. I told it that I liked Westmark by Lloyd Alexander, and that I liked No One Is Here Except All of Us by Ramona Oswald. Those are my 2 favorite books. And I asked it what it would recommend for me. And it said, The Night Circus, which is a book that I've had recommended to me before. So that's what we're going to do for that. Just a couple more that I've already chosen. Oops, this is the wrong one. So, while I try to find it, one of the categories on the reading challenge is for a book that's rated less than 3 stars on Goodreads. And it's not this one, but it is one with an orange cover. It's not that one either. We may have to pause because I can't find it. So the book that I chose was called An Arsonist's Guide to Writers' Homes in New England, which is somewhere on these shelves. but I don't see it. So please hold, I'll find it. We're not going to admit to how many passes of my bookshelf I needed to do in order to find this. Felt like I was going blind. But anyway, this Arsonist's Guide to Writers' Homes in New England has 2.97 stars on Goodreads, which I think is strange. It didn't sound like it was that bad to me, but since it fits and I have it, I guess I will read that one. There's also a category for a book about a non-traditional education, and I chose Babel for that. Which I've been meaning to read for a while. Obviously, Oxford, where it takes place, is deeply traditional, but the magical education that is occurring there, much less traditional. So it works for that category. And then there is a category for 2 books with the same title. Now, I had a reread of The Raven Cycle by Maggie Stiefvater on my list the last 2 years to do in the fall, and I've been in such a bad reading slump that I haven't done it. And I also frequently have the Foxhole Court series, plus this new Sunshine Court, on the list. I don't know why I did it like this, you can't see that. I usually have these on the list, just because they're fun to reread, and there's a new one coming out in 2025. I'm going to put them back on. I haven't been successful at rereading them because of that reading slump, but I'm going to put them back on, and they're going to fit for that category because famously, both of them have a book in the series called The Raven King. So they will fit that category very nicely, and that just gives me an excuse to do what I was already going to do, which was put them back on. Okay, so that's all the books that I kind of feel like I only have one thing that fits in the category. So now let's pull some things off the shelf that I have multiples for. Starting with a book with 2 or more books on the cover, or with the word book in the title. I think I probably have less of these than I think I do, but enough that I'm really going to have to search for it. So let's see what we can find. Have we got some options here? We have Charles Dickens's The Christmas Books, Volume 1. This is A Christmas Carol and another, novella of his. The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek. This was the first book I tried reading in 2024. It was good, the first 50 pages, but I was in such a bad reading slump that I never actually finished it. We've got Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This would actually be a reread. This is a really good book. The Know-It-All by A.J. Jacobs has obviously a big stack of books. The Shakespeare Notebooks, which is a Doctor Who sort of novel. Honestly, also one of my unhaul books for Category 3. Not that I don't love Doctor Who, and not that I don't love Shakespeare, but this is sort of like a Doctor Who story written in the style of a Shakespeare play where they interact with Shakespeare characters. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I have a feeling this is a book that I will enjoy reading one time. But who knows, maybe it'll be great. The Book Thief. Christmas by the Book. The Book of Dead Days. Books That Cook, The Makings of a Literary Meal. This is compiled by one of my former college professors. The Bookman's Tale, a novel of obsession. And The Russian Dream Book of Color and Flight. This one I also read many years ago. Excellent book. I don't know which one of those I'm going to choose, but I'm just gonna put them all on my TBR shelf and we'll see what happens. The next category that I collected off my shelf just now was a classic that you've never read. I actually am surprised by how many classics I own that I haven't read, because the vast majority of the classics that are on these shelves are things that I have read. But I do have some that I'm just going to put on here just because I think that they're options. But I have 4 sitting here on my right that are the real ones that I think I'm going to be choosing between. So this first stack that I'm going to show you, if I need to clear some room on my TBR shelf, I'll probably remove these and just narrow it down to this like core 4. I've never read Anna Karenina. F. Scott Fitzgerald's The Beautiful and Damned. T.H. White's The Once and Future King, although I should because I really like King Arthur. These next 2, I can't remember if I've read them or not. I have a sort of flawed memory of which Jane Austen I have and haven't read. But now that I think about it, sorry I'm disappearing from the frame, I started to read Emma over the summer. I was going to do an Ardent Austen summer. And again, reading slump was so bad that I didn't actually get very far. So Emma should be on here too. And then these are the 2 Jane Austens that I own that I can't remember if I've read or not. I feel like I've read one of them and not the other, but I don't remember which is which. Mansfield Park and Persuasion. I have never read Robinson Crusoe. And then these 2 are really fun additions. So I've never read To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, and this is a copy that was gifted to me when I graduated from grad school by one of my friends who was in my English cohort. And it's sort of an inside joke between us about one of the questions on the content knowledge test for English teachers. And then this, what I'm holding in my hand right now, might actually be the oldest single item that I have in my possession. This is a copy of Ivanhoe, and it has a inscription in it. So the first inscription is my dad's signature. Probably he got this book in like this, I would guess probably, I don't know, the 60s or 70s. And then underneath it is the inscription of the person who had it before him. It is an inscription that says, Florence, from Papa, Christmas 1900. Which tells me that this book that I'm holding in my hands, this edition, is at least 124 years old. Because Christmas 2024 is in a couple days. So this is an option as well. But actually none of those are the 4 that I'm super considering. Speaking of old editions, I actually have no idea how old this is. It could be older than that 124-year-old edition. Because I have no way of finding out. But this is you can't see it because it's got no binding anymore. But this is a copy of Nicholas Nickleby by Charles Dickens. I've seen the miniseries version of Nicholas Nickleby, and I really like it. But I've never read the book, so this is at the top of my list. As is Maurice by E.M. Forster, which is a classic in sort of like gay literature. And it was written in like 1914, so you know, it's over 100 years old if that's a criteria for you for a classic. This one I got from the library, so I'll have to give it back until I'm ready to read it. But I'm pretty sure I've never read Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson. I think I read the like illustrated, abridged, like upper elementary version that you can get sometimes, but I don't think I've ever read the original. And then also, my other option for a classic you've never read, I've read the Odyssey, I've even taught the Odyssey, but I don't think I've ever read the Iliad. And I got at the National Book Festival Emily Wilson's translation of the Iliad, and I got it signed. I'll show you. So this is also an option because I think this would be really fun to read. So let's go put all of this out here and then we'll see how much room we have left on my shelf. So I had more room, so I did the last couple of categories that I'm able to do from this list, and now I'm pretty sure I have way too many, because my stack for one of them is almost as high as what I'm balancing this on. But I'm going to put all of them out there, and then I get to do the fun work of pruning it down. So a couple small stacks here and 2 bigger ones. There's a category for a book about a road trip. And what I actually think I'm going to use for this one is the book that you see Florence and I rereading every year, which is The Christmas Mystery by Jostein Gaarder, which is about a journey through sort of space and time from, you know, the modern day to Jesus' time. But I also have a book called The Road Trip, so I'm just going to put that on there for fun. There is a category for a book that fills a 2024 prompt that you'd like to do over or try out. There was a 2024 prompt for a book about pirates, and I love pirates, but I didn't have a chance to do that. So I have A Pirate's Life for Tea by Rebecca Thorne. And in a related category, there's a book, a category for a book on or around a body of water, and I have these Horatio Hornblower books, which are about life at sea. So those would count for that category. There was a category for a book under 250 pages. I actually think I already know what I'm going to do for that. And let me pull that book too, because I forgot to put that one on here. I think I'm going to do this one. This is going to be, spoiler alert, my first unhaul book. I'll talk to you more about it in a second. But I have this Blair Witch novelization that's under 250 pages. A Guide to Being Born by Ramona Osbel is short stories. The Girl from the Fiction Department, A Portrait of Sonia Orwell. Paula Fox's The Slave Dancer, a little middle grade book. Similarly, Jessica Next Stop Junior High, a Sweet Valley Twins Diaries book. Also middle grade, also under 250 pages. Persepolis. This is a book called The Dollhouse Mystery. Again, kind of children's reader book. This book, Chouette. The Little Prince. Pieces. This is like another short story collection. Motherfucklore, Dispatches from a Not-So-Dead Language. Jacob Have I Loved, more middle grade. An utterly ridiculous looking book called Slaves of the Volcano God, which is sort of like pulp fiction. This is How You Lose the Time War, and The Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. All under 250 pages. And it's ridiculous that I'm going to even bring these out here because I already know pretty much which one I'm going to do for that. And then the biggest stack of all is a book that reminds you of childhood. Again, I think I already know what I'm going to do for this. I'm going to officially log The Box of Delights, which is a book that I reread every December. But I chose a bunch of books anyway just for fun, so I can put them all on there and then I can take them off again if I want to. So books that remind me of my childhood. Tuck Everlasting, The City of Golden Lead, and its first book, The White Mountains, which is on this pile somewhere. Daddy Longlegs by Jean Webster. Loved this when I was like 13 years old. The Giver by Lois Lowry. Changed my life. A Separate Peace by John Knowles, which I read in 9th grade. These Everworld books. Remember reading these in middle school. Julie of the Wolves and Number the Stars, both elementary school reads. True Confessions of Charlotte Doyle, another middle school love of mine. Briar's book, which is in the Circle of Magic series. Had such a crush on Briar when I was like 11. There's some Harry Potter. I only own the first 3 Harry Potter books. I don't know why. Wrinkle in Time. Oh, there's The White Mountains. Perks of Being a Wallflower, another one of my favorite books. Also changed my life when I was like 13, 14 years old. Little Men. Unpopular opinion, better than Little Women. Behind the Attic Wall, really interesting book that has stuck with me since middle school. And then this last one is maybe a weird choice for this category, but I was like 13 years old when I saw the Gormenghast series on TV. And this is volume 1 of that, Titus Grown. It's not really a children's book, I don't think. But I associate it with childhood because I remember watching this miniseries when I was in like late middle, early high school. Alright friends, I have my last stack here, which is a whole bunch of what I think are possible mood reads. Again, obviously I'm not choosing my mood read in advance, but these are ones that I sort of came close to mood reading or wanting to read this past year, so I'm going to migrate them all back. And then after I do that, I'll go back and weed out all the ones that I said, here are all the ones that fit this category, but I already know what I'm gonna read. So I'll take out all those extras again and make room for some of these, because I ran out of room on that shelf about midway through the books that reminded me of my childhood. So we'll definitely need to pare it back down. But I'll take you really quick through these potential mood reads that I predict might end up in that position this year. The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Good horror book for the fall. I've had it for a couple years and haven't read it. Everyone in my family has raved about Green Glass House. Again, good winter read. The next two are Aidan Thomas books that every single year end up on my TBR, and every single year I don't get to them. So The Sunbearer Trials, which has a sequel that is out, and Cemetery Boys, which has a sequel that is coming out. The Perfect Crimes of Marion Hayes, I got this book for Christmas last year, and I haven't read it yet. Witchmark by C.L. Polk, again, high on my list, haven't read it. I did read A Restless Truth. This is one that I read in like haphazard bits and pieces on the metro, and I really want to go back and give it a proper read. Same thing with A Power Unbound, which is the third book in the series. And same thing with Swordcross, which is the book that I'm reading right now that's in a different standalone by the same author. I said this year I was going to read It Happened One Christmas on the dates that it specifies in the book, and then I didn't do it, but I thought I might try again next year. Twelfth Night with a K is a Twelfth Night with an N retelling with like nerds. So Florence gave me that book and I want to read that. The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman, Arthurian retelling, love to read that. And then I have two books that are like day-by-day readers, so A Year of Self-Care and Shakespeare for Every Day of the Year. And those are things I'm interested in reading too. I have two more library books here that are also part of this list. And one of them is also a category for the Pop Sugar Challenge. So one of the categories, since the challenge is turning 10 years old in 2025, is to choose your favorite prompt from the 2015 Reading Challenge categories and read a book for that. And it just so happens that the 2015 Reading Challenge has a category that was repeated, I believe, in 2023, which is a book by an author with the same initials as you. And in 2023, I started to read this book, Days Without End, by Sebastian Barry, whose initials are also SB. And I was enjoying it, but I was in the beginnings of what was going to turn out to be a 2-year reading slump, and I never quite got too far into it. It is kind of an interesting, like, Western. It's a bit gritty. It does toe that fine line between, like, sort of realism and romanticism, because this centers around two sort of young men who also are kind of in love with each other, and it takes you through some of the more brutal realities of war, but also has them, like, forming kind of a found family with, like, a native girl after, you know, many of the people on their side did what they did to native communities. So, you know, it's a white author writing that subject matter. It might be a little bit dicey, a little bit problematic, but the writing is beautiful. And also, I noticed this when I picked up this copy from the library. So the last time I got this I got it out of the library briefly earlier this year, but the last time I got it out of the library and actually opened it was in 2023, and since then, when I opened it up, I discovered that someone had tucked into the book jacket this, like, review from the newspaper of this author's most recent release in 2023, which I thought was such, like, an adorable, endearing, like, human thing to do, which was to take a copy of this book and like say, if you liked that, do you think you might like this person's other book? And just like this little memento was left in here for me to find. So I thought that was really cute. But I'd like to try to retry to read this in 2025. In 2022, I read Blackout by Connie Willis, which is a time travel book. It sort of reignited my love of time travel. And ever since winter of 2022, I have been planning to read the sequel in the duology, which is All Clear. It's a little bit hefty, and while her writing was very engaging in Blackout, I wouldn't say it was not dense. So I'm a little nervous about it for that reason too, but I really want to find out what happens in this duology, and I need to finish it. So that's also on my list. Okay, I'm going to go put all these books on the shelf that already has no room on it, and then I'm going to make room for them by removing all the books that I explicitly stated were extraneous. And then to top off this video, which might not have the montage because it's going to be long as it is, I might put that montage on another video. I'll just go ahead and tell you what my January-February TBR is going to look like, because I've already picked it out. Just kidding, it's the next day. So basically, while I was rearranging my TBR shelf and weeding it out, I noticed that my camera battery was flashing, so I sort of got ready to charge it, and while I was waiting for it to charge, I decided to go take a shower, and unfortunately, after I take a shower, it's like a race to the finish line where bedtime is concerned. So instead of filming my TBR for January and February last night, I decided to just come back to it today. So I have my books here for my 4 categories, and we'll reveal those in a second. I am setting my Goodreads and Storygraph TBR number for 20 next year. Because I am going to do 4 sort of quarters, so the January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November. And I have 4 categories for each of those, so that's 16. And then if I keep up with my reading in the way that I've planned, I could think of at least 3 books that I would read in December. So we had It Happened One Christmas, The Box of Delights, and The Christmas Mystery. So I figured let's make that one an even number as well, and that'll get us to an even 20. If I'm lucky, I'll read more than that. But I think that's a sort of reasonable number. There's another thing that I am sort of pledging as a resolution for my reading in 2025, which is, my parents keep saying, you do these TBR videos all the time, but you never post wrap-ups talking about what you thought about the books. And for the last 2 years, that's partially been because I haven't actually read the books, because, you know, I don't know how many times I'm going to say the word reading slump in this video. So that's been a reason. But even when I was reading more regularly, I could have been a little bit better about, like, doing videos talking about what I thought of the books. So I'm going to attempt to resolve to do a winter TBR wrap-up and choosing the spring selections at the end of February, and then one for wrapping up spring and doing summer in late May, another one in late August for the fall, and another one at the end of November going into Christmas. And then maybe if I feel like it, one of my videos will be an entire year wrap-up where I sort of talk about the best and the worst. So on to January, February. I'm just going to go through these in the order that I pulled them off the shelf and tell you what category they're part of. So the first one you've already seen, which is this Blair Witch Project book called Blair Witch: The Secret Confession of Rustin Parr by D.A. Stern. This is my first unhaul book of 2025. I don't even know why I have this book. I think I got it around the time that the Blair Witch Project came out. For some reason, I thought that was something I would be interested in. It's been however many years, what, like 15, 20 years since that movie came out, and I still haven't even seen it, so I guess I'll watch it before I read this. But I got this book, and I thought that would be cool to have. and I've never read it. I've flipped through it a little bit. Can't say the writing looks great. I don't think this is going to be a hit for me. I think this is going to be an auto unhaul, but it'll be quick and I'll read it real fast beforehand. So that's going to be my unhaul book. The next book that's on this list is the only book on this list that you haven't seen yet. I saved it and didn't put it in the rest of the video because it was my little free library book, and I didn't want to spoil what it was. I actually, for my first one, I'm kind of cheating a little bit in two ways. One is that my first little free library was not actually a little free library. We can't call our church's little free library that because little free libraries have to be registered and they have to be available to the public 24/7. And ours wheels in and out. It's not always available. So we call it our mobile library. So I wanted to start there because it seemed right. But I also gamed the system because this book was put in there in like October, and instead of taking it out at the time, that was around the time I was coming up with this goal, so I left it strategically in there, and kind of ensured that it was the most enticing book in the little free library, so that when the time came yesterday to pull my book, it would be The House of Salt and Sorrows by Aaron A. Craig. This is a 12 Dancing Princesses retelling, which is not a fairy tale that I'm deeply familiar with, but I've had this book on my TBR for like 5 years. My dad said he didn't care for it that much, but I think I might like it. Alright. My mood read for January, February was originally between the book that I'm going to show you and The Terror by Dan Simmons, which I've wanted to read for a couple years now. And really the only thing that decided it, because they're both great winter reads, was that there were no copies of The Terror available at my local library. So I went for the book that I owned, which is Babel. I'm finally going to try to read this in January and February. Obviously, book under 250 pages fits the Pop Sugar category. This one also fits the Pop Sugar category of a book you got for free. This one fits the non-traditional education. So they all fit Pop Sugar categories, even though that's not why I chose them. But this one just feels like she's got a novel called Catabasis coming out in 2025, which is going to be fitting my category of the anticipated read for 2025. Catabasis is apparently going to be a sort of love story, but it's the way she described it, it's about like two doctoral students who go into the underworld to rescue their academic advisor because they need like a recommendation from him or something, which I think sounds fascinating. But I feel like I should read like her really well-known book before that comes out. And then, as you might have guessed from my enthusiasm for it, my Pop Sugar Reading Challenge category book is going to be Elsewhere, which is going to fit the book you want to read based on the last sentence. I liked the last sentence so much that not only did I decide it was going to be my choice for that category, but I instantly decided it was going to be my first Pop Sugar category for my seasonal TBR. So this is the stack. I don't know if you can see it. This is the stack. I will update you hopefully in February about how this goes. We'll see if I read all 4 of them. We'll see if I read more than 4. That would be great. That would really be a sign I was out of the reading slump, is if I got to choose a 5th book. And I have a whole method for doing that, which I'm sure surprises no one. So we can get into that if I end up doing it. But this is the video that I'm going to post now. It should go up today, December 23rd. I'm either going to post 2 more videos in Vlogmas or just after Vlogmas between Christmas and New Year's. One of them is going to be a reset with me that I'm hoping to film today. And the other one is going to be that montage of all the other stuff that I was supposed to film for Vlogmas, but unfortunately life got in the way. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for sticking with it, even though I went unexplainedly MIA for 2 weeks. We're so glad to have you on this channel. We'll have more content this year and in the new year, and I'll see you in my next one. Happy reading! Bye, everybody!